Hey guys, welcome to part two. I want to apologize if I seemed to be in a rush in the last video. I was trying to get it all done. I apologize. I'm going to do just a quick review until I get to the point of where I'm at now. Um, I want to reiterate here: affliction brings about humility. It also can bring about rebellion. So just keep that in mind. The products of being afflicted are reaching out in humility or reaching to rebellion or anger or hate. Um, and this is something the Lord wanted me to bring up that was just laid on my heart when I was praying before doing this. Again, I'd like you to read Psalms 73 and 37. I'd read a couple of 73 and then read a couple of 37 and go back and forth, and you'll see just a real interesting conversation that God has with the author. But anyway, that's for you to do on your own. Again, this is what I said this is all about. We're in a prison, whether we know it or not. And those that walk in darkness don't even have any idea that this is a prison or even being afflicted. Some do. Some are waking up to this. I pray they wake up soon. If not, it's going to be pretty much in our face when this whole judgment starts to come down. God will hear their cries as he always does, and he will release them too as he always has. He's mighty to save. Just know that the time of being saved isn't over. If you're watching this at a later time where chaos is taking over the world, this isn't over. This is just God's way, and I know this sounds difficult. But this is just God's way of waking up his people to come to him. All right, and that seems to be the only way people will come to him wholeheartedly is when they need him most. Okay, so we talked about Egypt and Washington, D.C., and the similarities there of Egypt and Washington, D.C., and why is that. Talked about our government hatching the eggs, hatching the plans, weaving the spider's web, weaving the web of deceit. Whoever partakes in their plans is going to die. If you break their plans or come against their plans, they lash out. Their lives will not cover them for very long, as God will come down and destroy them. We went through this. We went through it kind of fast, but I hope you can understand. And I'll put this document in the Google Drive so you can look at it too. And this is their running verse right here. They do everything in secret and dark. Who knows us? Who sees us? They run to evil. Talked about the tribe of Dan and how they're all connected. This whole tribe is working against God's people. All right, you got to do some research on the tribe of Dan in the Bible. I didn't do it justice here, but do some research on the tribe of Dan in the Bible. Nothing is coincidence. All these people are connected. We talked about our mother and father, how we're birthed into this tree of knowledge. All right, this tree of knowledge is the placenta. This tree of knowledge is also the Nile, which is found in Egypt. That's where all knowledge, secular-based or demonic knowledge, comes from. This is why Egypt enslaved Israel, all right, because God needed a country to bring a Messiah, and Egypt was chosen by Satan to be his country to stem all the knowledge from. Again, the tree of knowledge coming from here. Talked about George Washington, the rod of the Lord's anger. Okay. This is where we're going to kind of go to back again. Okay, this is the hypothesis of Washington, the elevation of God's status to Washington. And we have all these fallen angels around here. We'll call them fallen angels. You can call them, gods, Roman gods, whatever you want to call them. But essentially they're fallen, teaching mankind things. We're going to get into that. 73 stars in that fresco. The gods are teaching the people war, industry, capitalism, communication, wisdom, ironwork. Meanwhile, they're in bondage, not free, but building a kingdom that they will never serve in. We talked about the Affliction t-shirt. This was a very interesting paragraph. And the as above, so below, the rod of his anger. We're birthed out of war, okay, which essentially is, and that's why the cover photo you see on the YouTube channel is a general and a woman, essentially, is because war generates all these things right here that we talked about. War generates these things. That's why Washington, as the highest ranking general in the Army of the United States ever, right, is the father of our country, because that seed of war is what produces all of this. If I didn't make that clear last time, I apologize. And that's what the beast is going to do, essentially, the war. Make war with the saints to overcome them. And our mother. Cast iron dome, okay? Cast iron. What did we talk about? The iron furnace. Okay, we're going to get into that today. Brought you forth out of the iron furnace, even out of Egypt. Cast iron furnace. That's where all those things are. Okay. And there's the womb, okay? All right. It's also called the matrix, opening up the matrix. Okay, here's where we're going to start. Whoever opens the womb among the children of Israel, both man and beast, is mine, says God. So if you come out of that womb and you come out of that furnace, he's yours. You're his. Okay, you're sealed. Okay, now we're going to talk about a little bit about testing and refinement and exactly what those gods are doing. So remember the fresco, the rotunda, how the fallen gods were in the dome teaching mankind. How you had gods of agriculture, communication, maritime, war, all teaching humanity these traits. The iron dome also signifies the fallen angels and them teaching and leading in knowledge. When the old system is destroyed, these fallen will be here to direct mankind into a false utopia, which is going to be essentially the peace on earth. All right, but there'll be no peace, because what they're going to do is you'll need to be on the side of the beast, or you'll need to be eliminated. I remember I had a dream one time when I was actually sitting in like a beheading machine, and there was a sign. You know how you go to the dentist and they have that little light that they put in your mouth or towards your mouth, and they'll have like a little creature or whatever on there to give you comfort, like a little fuzzy thing or some sort of sign or smile or whatever. There was something like that in this office. I guess I was at this beheading machine, and it says, "You're free to be a Christian. You just won't be a Christian here." And I'll never forget that. And that's exactly what's going to be in this false utopia. They're going to have this false peace. However, they're going to kill anybody who doesn't want to be a part, or who wants to cause controversy, or or tell them about God, because this man's going to claim to be God. He's going to come here. This also goes back to Daniel and how the iron will mix with the clay. All right, this is the iron dome, these iron angels. When you look at iron in the Bible, it's always talking about the fallen, either the fallen or the Nephilim. You have Goliath with a spear 5 shekels made of iron. You have Tubal-Cain, who was a fisher who fissuated iron in the furnace. You also had King Og-Bashan with his bed of iron. The Canaanites with chariots of iron and clay. It's a theme throughout the Bible. The rotunda, as we discussed before, the fallen men teaching the worldly facets exist today. When these facets initially started, they weren't necessarily what you would think. You would think they were normal, learning how to communicate, grow food, have power, electricity, communications. But what has happened is Satan has used these things to get people to fall away from God and His Word. All right, they've all become corruptible and abominable in God's sight. And I'm going to explain how here in a minute. Surrounding Washington, you have the 2 goddesses and the 13 maidens, or 6 scenes on the perimeter, representing the national concept of allegorically from directly below Washington in the center, moving clockwise: war, science, maritime, commerce, mechanics, and agriculture. So let's talk about war for a second. So we have this depiction here of this. First off, if you look at this, these people aren't even armed, and you have this freedom coming with the sword against them. I think there's one guy right here in armor, but everybody else is like old and frail, which really just kind of struck a nerve with me. But anyway, we'll continue on. The wars that we fought, there are good wars in the Bible, and there are wars that shouldn't be fought. Whenever Israel went to war, they always asked the Lord. And you got to understand, it's easy for an atheist to say God is a God of bloodshed because of all the wars that are in the Bible, but you have to understand what exactly they're fighting against. It was the fallen corruption, the fallen DNA manipulations from the fallen angels and the seeds of men. And that's what you have to understand. If you don't understand that, it's not going to make sense to you. But here we have, we've been in Afghanistan how long, and we're still rotating soldiers over there, but yet we have this, and they're the number one producer in opium, and we're under an opioid epidemic. And I can tell you as a cop, it is absolutely, I can't describe it. We carry kits on us that neutralizes the effects of opioids in the system, and we've got awards for people that have administered this and saved people from ODing. These opioids, they came in under the guise of, hey, you've been injured. I knew this in jail. When I worked in the jail, there was a guy that played football, and he got addicted to opioids from his injuries. And it's an addicting drug. And they have used these crops against us, and now have made this a proponent in the United States. And it's an epidemic that's just driving Americans to their knees with this opium. And you can do all the research you want on it: oxycodone, painkillers, heroin. I mean, it's unbelievable. Now it's starting to get into the marijuana, so kids are smoking it, trying to do, I won't call it an innocent drug, but I mean, anything abusive or to alter your mind is not a good thing. But I do think that there are positive uses for that, but we won't get into that debate here. However, when you're doing it to get high or to change your thought process, then definitely that is against God. So, but this is obviously a problem. Obviously, it's set up by the government as a reason for 9/11 to go over there and secure these poppy fields so that we can take control of this industry and export it as we see fit into our own country to destroy our own people. So, yes, there are wars that are godly. There are wars that we should fight, and I do believe World War II was probably one of those. And I believe we had God on our side, because otherwise we would have never defeated Japan and Germany. Okay, science. Here's the god of Nineveh, whatever you want to call her, Minerva, crafts and wisdom. And how far has science gotten so far out of whack? We're now trying to change the human body to introduce science or technology to make it better. There are test tube babies, so you can design your own babies. We are cloning sheep since the 90s, so I know we're cloning human beings. There's no doubt about that. And you can do your own research on that, and there's plenty of information out there. I will say this: if it's a clone, there is no soul, because God did not make that in the womb. And thus there will be no spiritual battle for that person. So that entity is free to take over as that host grows up, as he desires. So there's no spiritual fight there. And we're just doing very strange things with both animals and humans and babies. And science has become no longer a positive thing. It's become a very negative and very against God, and destroying the image of God that God makes. Okay, we're not gods. We don't make people. God makes people. And that's the thing on science. Commerce. Commerce was a little difficult to research. However, commerce has become very corrupt in a sense that it's there's commerce now happening that is not regulated. It started off, if you think that slavery ended back during the Civil War, you're in for a big surprise. I'm sure we're sinning, and it talks about this in Joel chapter 2 or 3, where women and boys are sold for oil. I mean, women and boys are traded to Saudi Arabia. So there's very, very ugly things in slave trade. And I was looking at this book, and I stole this from, it's called Dark Commerce. And I thought I couldn't put it any better. So I stole this and put this in my report here, or borrowed it, or given her Louise Shelley, or give her credit for this. In this new world of illicit commerce, which benefits states and diverse participants, trade is impersonal and anonymized, and vast profits are made in short periods with limited accountability to sellers, intermediaries, or purchasers. Louis Shelley examines how new technology, communications, globalization fuel an exponential growth of dangerous forms of illegal trade, the markets for narcotics, child pornography online, escalation of sex trafficking through the web advertisements, and the sale of endangered species, for which revenues total in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So, obviously, it's no longer traders coming over here with spices, trading with the Indians. I mean, it's gotten so far out of hand, and who knows where all that opium's going? Is it going to America? Are we trading it for things? Who knows? But I can tell you that all those countries out east, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Iran, Iraq, very explicit deals, I'm sure, are being made for oil and various other products too. All right, mechanics. It's God right here talking about mechanics to these people. Mechanics have, now we're inventing robots that have algorithms so that they can learn. And guys, I'm just giving you one simple, thing here. There's a whole elaborate study you could do on mechanics and science and commerce and everything else. This is just a shotgun shot out of just things that have caught my mind. Just one thing that I can think of right offhand that comes to mind. Actually received citizenship, this robot did, in Saudi Arabia. So just, again, talking about how she's learning and growing and her mind, and, wants to have a job. And I mean, come on. I mean, this is just getting absolutely abominable. Agriculture. This is an easy one. Monsanto. I mean, our food supply is made essentially by the most diabolical group on the planet, and controlled. I'll never forget, my dad worked for a company called Pioneer Seed Corn, and this was back in the early 90s. He was telling me about the stuff that they're doing with plants and how they're trying to get more yield by growing plants without tassels. I mean, one of the odd jobs in Iowa was you go around and pull the tassels out of corn. You do that in the summer for your work in the summer and buy your school stuff and go to school in the fall. But he was telling me how they're trying to genetically modify the crops and everything else back then, and look where it's at now. I mean, our food supply is garbage. It is garbage, folks. That they're in. It doesn't take much research. I would urge you to do it now while it's still light out. That what they're doing to the food supply. I can tell you, McDonald's, all those fast food restaurants. I mean, Taco Bell came out and said that their tacos had 88% real beef. Wow, what's that other 22%? You know what I mean? You got to open up your eyes. Some would say this is how the country grows. This is how we've prospered. Our country's gotten better. First off, I would say you're truly blind to say a statement like that. Our lives as humans has not gotten any better at all. We're sicker, we're overweight, we're have more diseases, we have more plagues now. Our average life expectancy is being lowered as we speak. The only thing that's increased and gotten, and I wouldn't say better, but that has gotten more advanced is technology. That's it. The human body, not so much. Our soldiers have like the best technology, but they're so unprepared to fight a war, even though they've been fighting a war. I mean, because of all the the extra, what would I say? How would I put it? Not extra fluff, but like extra garbage that's being put on them. They can no longer just train, shoot, and get ready and use this technology. I mean, they have all these other inhibitors, I guess, sensitivity training. There's no readiness. And half the time, technology is so fast that the soldier can't even keep up with it, that he doesn't even know how to work that piece of equipment properly. So anyway, that's just my little rant from a soldier side of view. But um, God will never, ever, ever bless a nation or a people that continually sheds innocent blood and that supports abominations, gay marriage, bisexual, pedophilia, the the restrooms that anyone can use, no matter what degree of intellectual person sits in the White House, no matter how smart he is, how good he is, how suave he is. I don't care if it's Trump, I don't care if it's Obama, Biden, whoever you want to put in there, whoever the smartest man you think is on the planet. God will never, ever, ever bless a nation that continuously does those things. He is, however, understandably patient with us and gives us plenty of space since whenever Roe v. Wade occurred until now on how to repent and get away from that garbage. And he sends warnings. He sends things to tell us, not to do those things, but we blow them off. And he would in turn heal us and be able to see us and then heal our nation, and we would come back to him. So not only during this time of patience that the Lord has for us do we ignore him, we also increase the abominations or increase the bloodshed. So now instead of a first trimester abortion, we're going to pass a bill that now is for a second trimester or a third even. Or, oh, by the way, if you're not happy with, if you know your child is going to be have Down syndrome, then we can abort that child as well. So during that time of patience he's trying to give us, we're just going faster and faster, our feet running towards evil. Then he can keep up. Then I mean, at some point in time, he's got to pull the plug, and or people are going to fall away. All right. So also people will drift away, like I just said, during this time and have less patience to hold fast to what God is saying. And this is hard, guys, because I've been there. All right. Ever since 2012, he spoke to me, and I thought in 2012, oh my gosh, I'm saved. He's coming. The blood moons are here, and we're going home. And of course, that wasn't the case. And here I am. And believe me, it's been a long, long, hard walk. And, but you got to have that patience to hold fast to the truth and hold fast to what he's doing, hold fast to his plan, hold fast to him, trust him, focus on him, stay with him, read about him, continue to grow and grow and grow and grow. So how do we get to this point? How do we go from farming on the plains of Kansas to Monsanto's genetically modified poison? First off, understand, Satan understands time. He knows time. He knows how much time he has. And he knows how long he has to trick mankind to get them to fall away. He uses this time to his advantage. In other words, it took a long time to introduce the arm of technology, the radio, the TV, all these things that began to corrupt us, the computer, the phones. It was more and more like an ejection process. Once one came along, boom, the next one came along. You had black and white TV. We got color TV. We got a 14-inch TV. We got a 22-inch TV. All right, so everything gets better. iPhone 1, iPhone 2, iPod. Remember those old iPods with the little wheel on them? I mean, so everything gets pushed with great intensity. Now that he knows his time is short, with greater intensity, he's bringing these things forward. After Roswell is when technology first took off. This is when we acquired night vision, fiber optics, Kevlar, among other things. He does not give this knowledge for free. Okay, it requires fornication, which we're going to talk about. Spiritual fornication, which means worship, sacrifice, going to him, letting him lead. Okay, it's all about him and what he can do for you, but what also you are going to do for him in return. Just like the Hollywood. If you ever look at those Hollywood interviews, I sold my soul to the devil, wanted to play rock and roll. All right, you want something, it's going to cost you something. You want money, it's going to cost you something. Um, so an example of this, what happened in Genesis 6, the book of Enoch, is where the fallen angels mated with women in exchange for heavenly secrets. These secrets were enchantments, warfare, astrology, the cutting of roots. Some of these are mentioned in the book of Enoch. So what does this have to do with today? Most of our elected officials, okay, or heads of companies or heads of medical fields, all these different people are in fornication with Lucifer. In exchange for bloodshed, which would be your false flags or demonic rituals that we know nothing about, that don't make the news, Satan provides technology and knowledge to further enslave us. So it's a vicious, vicious cycle. This is what you're seeing in the rotunda. Even the word rotunda means round, round belly, as a belly of a woman, as a womb, as opposed to rotund or rotundo. When you're born again through repentance, all right, and calling out like a newborn, that's being born again. That's when you are taken out of the system that I just spoke of, and you now look from the outside in and can see the diabolical purposes of all these things. And you'll have new sight and new ears. You then begin to focus on the heavenly kingdom, like what I'm doing now, trying to wake people up, and the works of Christ. This, of course, seals you by Jesus Christ in his blood to do the Father's will here on earth, to wake others up, to wake up your brothers left and right. Sealed now and being born again new, with a great cry to God the Father, you've been pulled out of the matrix, or pulled out of the womb, or pulled out of the iron furnace. And the Lord has taken you, brought you forth out of the iron furnace, out of Egypt. So this would read, the Lord is taking you out of enslavement in this country. That's what this is, enslavement. He has brought you forth from the iron furnace, which is the capital, out of Egypt, America, to be a people of inheritance, heaven, to dwell with the Lord again. Yes, you did originate in heaven. And this is our iron furnace. Okay? Called out from the iron furnace, the matrix, the dome, to see the truth, to have understanding. The rest are in blind or darkness, as we discussed before. Who works in the iron furnace? It's the smith. He's the instrument created by God to test, try, and sift his people to see if the truth is in them. Read about Matthew 13 and the seeds. You have some seeds fall in stony ground, some seeds fall and grow, but the thorns choke them out. And then some are good seed. Okay, so you need to read the parable about the seeds. When you come out of the hot furnace, this is what the smith does. All right, he begins to test you. Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire. I don't have it up here, but the Smithsonian Institute, all right, is all about the history of the United States. It's all about what we've produced, what we've done, what we've accomplished. The Smithsonian. I have created the smith. And then, of course, Lord told Simon, I will sift you. Satan wants to sift you as wheat, but I have prayed for you that you fail not. All right, so this is the testing portion. When you come out, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is good and acceptable and the perfect will of God. So when you see the world as a satanic kingdom, you know that this guy, he's really in charge. Because, you know, I see now what's going on. There is a God over him, and it's a done deal. God will win. So it's hard to hold on to that because of what you're still living here on earth, and you're still in this flesh. But be of good cheer that now you know it's all real. So I'm going to share a personal testimony in closing. Well, I served in Iraq as a government contractor, and this is when I found the Lord. I was actually in my room and I called out to him. Something, triggered me. And I knew at that moment that everything was real. Heaven, Jesus, God, everything very, very, very real. I became very high on God. I just started talking to him like he was like right next to me. And I remember walking into breakfast one morning. I was approaching a buffet and I saw all the cantaloupe and everything. And I was like, Lord, you're so good, to give us all these things. Thank you very much. The Lord heard in my spirit, you're always so thankful, my son, but you will be tested. So I got scared when I heard that. I was like, well, what's going to happen? Am I going to be attacked on base? You know, here I am. I was kind of nervous. And I decided, well, I'm going to go sit down and eat breakfast. So I went and sat down. I had 7 friends with me, guys right next to me, in my left and right. I mean, within 5 inches of me. I mean, we were walking together to this breakfast table. And this guy who was sitting down looked me straight in the eye. And I'll never forget it, but he says, why, and excuse my language, why the fuck are you going to sit at my table? And he looked right at me when he said this. And I was like, I just said, enjoy your meal. I couldn't believe no one else heard it. And I kind of smiled. I was like, what? I don't understand. But what I'm telling you is God, as you learn and grow, and as you start to soak up this Word of God into you, and you start to understand everything, and everything starts to come together, and you learn the secrets of where you originated from, or you know, maybe even who you are, or whatever, or God shares some intimate information with you, you're gonna go. It's gonna drive you crazy because you can't believe it's real, and it's gonna resonate in you as truth. But Satan's going to see this, all right, and he's going to come against you. And Satan will try to uproot that seed by fear, by control, by manipulation, by things of the world, by money, whatever he can use. Yeah, because you're a danger now to him, knowing these things, and it's difficult. At times, it can be very difficult. But God, pray to Him that He will always give you the things that you need to get you through those trials or pains. Some go through many trials, some hardly at all. It depends on who you are and what your calling is. And it can be very difficult at times. I know. Trust me, I know. I've been tested so hard I couldn't even pray. I didn't even want to pray. I didn't even want to think of God. And how can I go from being so high on God to that? You know, it's the pressure that was put on. But anyway, guys, I don't want to make this any longer. God bless you. Take care. And see you in heaven. Amen.